Hey folks, my name is Ryang Gonzales with Becker Properties. Welcome to the Real Estate Rundown. I'm here with Lucinda Gutierrez, and she is a longtime friend, investor, and client. And so today we'll just be talking about her story, how she came up as investing or in investing, and what she's doing today. And she has such an interesting story. I really wanted to get her on this podcast, so let's just jump right into it. I've known Lucinda probably like 15, 20, almost 20 years probably, because we went to high school together.
Yeah, probably more
We're about
than
to have
20.
our 20th, which is crazy to me. Grew up down the street from each other, knew each other in high school. Then we kind of fell out of touch for a minute.
You lived in my extra room.
Oh, yeah, for a minute, yeah. That's when I ran away. I ran away for like 2 weeks. That was funny. Yeah, and then we fell out of touch for a little bit. I got into real estate. You messaged me one time. You were already kind of doing an investment or a flip with your husband now, Anthony. And then we jumped on a website called HUD, and we were able to get a house off of there. It's a foreclosure. We were able to get a house over there for like super cheap. And then y'all ended up flipping that, and that's kind of where y'all took off, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, in the very beginning, when you first met Anthony, like, how did this all come about? Like, was he already in construction? Was he already doing the GC stuff? Or like, did he just start? Or how did it happen?
No, we were both working. He was actually just a laborer at a construction company, so just like the guy that cleans up. And
Man, he's come a long way.
and then I was still in high school, but we were living in an apartment, and every time we would renew our lease, they would increase the rent. So by that point, we were paying, this was like 20 years ago, paying like $900 for rent over there by the medical center. And then
That's a lot back then.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so we were thinking like, okay, well, they keep going up on the rent. And then this last rent, they were going to go up like $150. So I think I was like 19, and I'm like, hey, let's buy a house. And he's like, I don't know how. I'm like, me neither. So we went to the bank, and they're like, yeah, you qualify for $70,000. So at that point, we could buy a house for $70,000.
Yeah, for sure.
In 2006, it was right before everything blew up. So we bought I called it our little house in the hood. It was over there by like 90 and Military, and it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. And so we moved in, and our mortgage payment was like $430.
That's awesome, dude.
It was nice.
Man,
and
that was the time to buy, right? Sheesh.
Yeah, so we lived there for a while, and then we ended up adding a 3rd bedroom, and then another bathroom, and then a laundry room. And the housing market crashed whenever we were there. But I mean, we were living for $400 a month. So
Yeah, so y'all weren't tripping.
yeah, it was fine. And I was in nursing school, so then right after I finished nursing school, I started making some decent money. So that's when Anthony was like, hey, I think I'm going to quit my job now since you're making good money and try to start a business. And that's kind of how we did it. So he worked while I went to nursing school, and then he got me through nursing school. And then once I started working, then he quit, and then it gave him time to build up his business. And by that point, the market had come back. We had been living there for like 5 years at that little house. So we had a lot of extra income too. So we were saving like crazy. So little by little, we fixed that house up, and then we ended up selling it for like $85,000, which wasn't a lot, but it was a lot for us.
And y'all bought it originally for what?
$50,000.
Oh, okay.
And then
So
all the
over
DIY
years,
was us. Like, we remodeled the kitchen ourselves.
You got your hands dirty?
We did everything in that house.
Yeah.
Flooring, bathrooms, kitchen.
Yeah.
We learned how to pour concrete because we added on to the house. But we had help. So my dad...
I wonder what the condition of that house is now.
It's good. The
since y'all
lady
did all the
that
DIY.
lives there, she still calls us.
Yeah?
Because she knows that we kind of remodeled the whole house. We updated
You know everything
the
about the
electrical.
house, yeah.
Yeah, so whenever she has problems, she'll actually call us to go fix them.
That's cool, man.
Yeah,
That's
20
really
years later,
cool.
it's still the same homeowner. So Anthony still goes over there, and he sees the house, and everything, surprisingly, is still holding up.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, so that's how we started.
He kind of knew how to do some stuff just by being in the industry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he started his own business when we lived there, so then he would kind of practice, I guess, on our house, or do it first at our house before he did it for
Would
somebody
he ever
else.
mess up big over there at y'all's house?
He put the tile in crooked in the bathroom,
Oh, man.
and then so we had to tear it out and do it again. But in the
That's
very
not that
beginning,
bad.
we were actually like net negative on his business because it was more about getting his name out there and just getting jobs than making money. So it was almost like a one step back to take two forward.
Okay, so right off the bat, he became GC.
Yeah.
He was subbing a lot of stuff out.
But no. Right off the bat, it was him doing all the work.
Okay.
But he was just a one-man crew. And then I would help him in like delivering materials and
Carpentry
doing invoices.
or what?
Yeah, he did
Mostly?
a lot of carpentry, a lot of painting.
Tile. He learned how to do tile.
Yeah, a lot of
Self-taught.
painting, a lot of tile. And then that's when he started little by little getting slightly bigger jobs, like maybe a kitchen or something like that. So it was a few years before he really started doing like a full remodel, like a whole house.
Yeah.
And then
for sure.
getting his GC license. So in the beginning, it was just like a DBA.
Okay. So by the time we reconnected, I got my license in 2013. So that's when y'all were looking for a new project, a new house.
Yeah.
And y'all had a little cash saved up, right?
Mm-hmm. So we had been living at our little house in the hood for about 5-6 years. And then we're like, hey, I think we should move already. We had a little bit of cash savings. We had some equity in the house that we were working
Definitely.
at. So then that's whenever we contacted you and found that HUD house.
Mm-hmm.
And then so all the projects that we did in the beginning, we lived there while we fixed them. So we didn't.
Dude, and that's a project in itself right there. That's tough.
So we had
I've
to do
done that
everything
too.
in sections. Yeah, you wash dishes in the bathtub.
I would not recommend that for anybody. I have clients coming to me and thinking about the same situation, and they're like, "Oh, we'll just live in it." I was like, "You better second think that and talk to people who've done that because that is not easy."
It's not easy. We didn't have any kids, which was probably what made it work.
Yeah.
If we would have had kids, it would have been a lot harder. But just me and him, I mean,
Near impossible, probably with kids. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of ramen and sandwiches and takeout.
When y'all got that house with me, y'all weren't living in it, right? Y'all weren't living in it right away, right?
Yeah, the one that you bought us.
You lived in it right away,
Mm-hmm.
and you sold the other one.
Yeah. So we went into that one and then we sold the other one. Luckily, the market
Sheesh.
was really good, so it didn't take a long time. But we bought the one that, the HUD house that you got us in cash.
You ever buy that cash?
It
Yeah.
literally took all of the money we had in all of our bank accounts. I think I maybe had like $56 in my bank account
Dude,
after we bought
that's
that house.
insane.
We were scared.
Dude, talk about risk, right? When you're down to your last couple dollars, it's insane. But you have like all this money tied up in assets, and it's hard to wrap your brain around that. You're like, man, I'm poor right now, but
Yeah.
you're really not. But you are, like you're cash poor.
Yeah.
That's a crazy feeling.
Luckily, I work, so I'm like, okay, we just got to make it like 7 more days, and then we'll get a paycheck.
What's for dinner? Ramen. What's for breakfast? Ramen. Dude, that's funny,
so
dude.
we had like no money when we bought that house. And then luckily we sold the other one, so then we got a little bit of money from that one. And then, like I said, I've always worked full time, so then I've always had that like safety net of
Yeah, and he was still
a
getting
paycheck.
some jobs here and there, right? Like a
Yeah.
little money coming in.
Yeah, by that point he was doing pretty good.
That's
He
good.
had maybe like 1 or 2 guys working for him already.
So y'all were probably working on that house for another 6 months or something like that before anything,
Yeah. So we worked on that one too while we lived there.
and then y'all sold that one.
That one was probably our best house.
Oh, y'all lived in that one for a while, right? Then y'all started doing other projects.
So we lived there again, same concept. We didn't have any mortgage payment on that one.
Sure.
And then once we lived there for about a year, and we had fixed everything up in it, we did a cash out refi. So we got some of our money out, but just the initial investment of like $70,000. So I think we bought it for like 60 something. And then
Yeah, if I remember right, 64 or something like that.
yeah, it was really cheap back then too. And then we
But
put
how much
maybe
y'all had
like
to put into
10,
it?
if that, maybe, because we did everything ourselves again.
Oh, okay. So
And-
like materials, basically just
Yeah.
that was the main cost, materials.
And I'm always looking for something that's on sale,
Deals.
clearance tile.
See, I want to
clearance
talk to you about
flooring.
that too, because you were always really good at finding the deals. Like
Yeah.
whatever deals were out there, even like I remember you talking about like sales at like Home Depot or Lowe's had like holiday sales. You would capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Like Black Friday sales, you would capitalize on that.
That's where we would go. So usually I would find something on sale that was the biggest item. So if we were doing kitchen, like I would try to find cabinets that were on sale and then do everything else around that. So if flooring was on sale, then that's what I would buy and then choose my paint colors and
Based off that.
fixtures and stuff based off of the big ticket item.
That's
was
really
a
smart.
discount.
I don't think a lot of people think like that.
Yeah, so that's how we did it.
I think if you get too set on what you want to do, you don't have much room for like some type of flexibility. But I mean, cost and that all plays a part in making this money, making profit.
Yeah, you can make almost anything look good. So
You need a woman's touch though too. I think
That's true.
I think that's where you come in.
I don't know. I'm not that girly.
No?
I don't have that.
Anthony's
eye.
got a better like eye than you.
He does. He can put more colors together, concepts, textures.
I'm having him do a project right now, and I'm like, bro, like honestly, I trust him too with the colors because he's helped me out on other flips. And
Yeah, he'll be like, "Ooh, you might have thought in your head that was gonna look good, but it ain't gonna look good."
I was like, "What have you done recently that looks good?" And like, show me. And he showed me. I was like, "Yeah, let's do that."
Yes.
Yeah.
So he usually picks the colors. I'm not good at picking colors. I need a wife, but it's worked. Together we can make it work.
Somehow it's worked.
Yeah.
I know you've put a lot of time in researching, like, well, not just cost and trying to find the deals, but like also trends and like the market. Especially, you've educated yourself a lot on the market since you got started. And so like it's a great team. Y'all are a great team for sure. So after that one on, was it Timber Hill or
Timber Path. Yeah.
Timber Path? After that one, a couple years went by, and then y'all started buying more flips or like rentals, buy and holds, or what did you do from that point?
From that point, where do we go after that? Oh, we bought another house. So then we started from there. For Timber Path, I was only looking on like MLS, HUD homes, things like that. And then once I was living at Timber Path, that's when I started looking at the foreclosure auctions. So that's kind of when we got into those. And then our next property that we purchased was at a foreclosure sale at the courthouse. And then we moved into that house to sell Timber Path.
Okay, so how did that process work with the foreclosures? This is what I really wanted to get you in here for, because that right there is something I think everybody wants to do, but they just don't feel like they have enough information about it, or there's not enough information out there. And how can they go about doing this? Because I just met, yesterday I went over there, and I just met a hard money lender that does the post-purchase sell for you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll buy, if you bid on a house over there and you don't have all the cash, they'll buy it for you. And it works the same thing as hard money. And so I'm sure more companies are going to start doing this, but to have that ability to buy something at the auction, like up until this point, I thought it was all cash. And maybe you'll have like a private lender that will be down to go in with you. But for the most part, it's been all cash, right, that you've needed at the auctions.
Mm-hmm. So we were looking at the websites, and then there was slim pickings. And then on the HUD home store website, a lot of them are first look properties, which means you have to live there. So first look, an investor can't buy those properties. So then if we're looking for something to
those
invest,
are all FHA foreclosures. So they're
Yeah.
trying to get somebody else to live and owner occupy that house.
Yeah, which was fine for us. The Timber Path house worked for us
That
because
worked
we were going to
perfect.
live in
Yeah.
there. So a couple HUD houses we have lived in.
I'm curious, do you still jump on that site? I haven't been on that site in a while.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
A lot of them are first-time home buyers, and that's really
So you're
not
not
what
really,
we're
you're
looking
not
at.
really trying to do that.
Yeah.
You are set now.
Yeah. We have a little way. So,
Yeah.
no, so that's what kind of got me into that. I was looking at other avenues. MLS, by the time they got on MLS, they were,
I feel like there wasn't enough margin there, right? Enough
There wasn't
profit
enough.
made, yeah.
margins there. So then I started looking at the foreclosure auction. I read a lot. As you know, every time you talk to me, you're like, how do you know that? I'm like, I read that. So
Dude, that's one thing, man.
it was a lot of reading.
You've done a lot of research, yeah.
A lot of research, a lot of reading. But even then, I still didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I thought I had the concept down and the ideas on what I wanted to do. So then I started looking at foreclosure auctions. I had no idea how they worked. I just got a free list online, and I did all this research. I went to go drive by the properties. I had my notes. I was ready to go. So then I show up to the auction, and then I realized that you had to take the money with you before you could bid. So I did all that work for nothing. But at least I went to the auction, and
Yeah,
I saw what it was and the mistake I made. And then whenever
like,
I
I
was
won't make
there,
that mistake again.
yes, I was like, I spent all these hours, all this time outside of my normal full-time job, and then I couldn't even do anything with it.
Yeah.
So that was a bummer.
Indirectly, that made you just a better like investigator, right? Like comp analyst, because now you're learning like kind of the areas better. I would say certain neighborhoods, you could probably say a lot of them have the same average price per square foot because a lot of them were built by the same builder. So that kind of gives you an idea, like whether it's a 2-story, 1-story. Right off the bat, you're like, okay, this one will probably sell right around this range because I know you have a lot of notes now and you have a formula now. So depending on the neighborhood, like if you know who the builder is, if you've already done a house in that area or researched a house nearby, that's what I was seeing because when my investor sent me that whole list, he had a lot of them nearby, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a similar price per square foot. Sure enough, it was. You can just double check, but that all helps you just become just that much better with your analysis.
Yeah, with your prices, and then you kind of know what side of town, what year it was built, whether you're going to have electrical problems, whether it's going to be, you know, what kind of plumbing it has, what kind of fuses it has. There's
people don't think about that too, like the age of the home.
Big ticket
oh
items.
my God!
Yeah.
Now, do you do like above a certain age, or you not care, or like try to stay away from certain houses?
Depends how much money I have to spend.
Oh, dude. Anthony probably doesn't want to hear that answer.
Yeah. So if if the margins are right, I'm open for any property. If it's going to be more of a wholesale, I try to go a little older, but not too old, because the newer homes, they don't have that much of a profit margin, so they're not really good, or they don't wholesale as fast, is what I've kind of noticed.
Yeah, and the people that are buying the wholesales from you, they may be like newer investors and not knowing exactly what they're getting themselves into. And I don't know that for a fact, but I know there's a couple of new investors that I've met recently that get into a house because they feel like the margins are good, but they're not realizing they're probably going to have to do a ton of plumbing or electrical work. And the electrical work is very, very expensive. The plumbing sometimes not so much, but I mean, you look at something like in the 50s or something like that.
Oh yeah, you're gonna do everything.
You're gonna, yeah, and that's what this one guy's doing right now. He ended up putting $100,000 in his house. He thought he was only gonna put 50. It's insane, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because you're not even considering like the roof might need to be replaced, and that's real big right now. With insurances right now, like there's some insurance companies that are not even wanting to cover you if your roof's still too old. It's crazy. Like insurance are being super strict on that shit right now.
Yeah, I think I'm paying like double premiums right now because I couldn't find a company that would insure.
So you know about it?
A landlord policy in Texas right now.
That's crazy, right?
Reading, yeah.
Reading, yeah.
Yeah. So I found this one company that would, but we paid a price with the premium.
Just knowing what you're getting yourself into for sure with when it comes to the flips and like how the age correlates with that. I think that's super important. So the next time you went to the auction, you got something then, right? You're prepared?
Yeah, I was ready. So then I was prepared, and that was actually how we got our first rental, because all that preparation, these are sight unseen houses. So it said on the website that it was a 3-2, and then whenever we bought it and went to the property, it was actually a 2-1. And so my prices for ARV
That's
were
a huge difference.
Yeah, not close at all. So a 2-1 to a 3-2 is
now how rare is that to happen? Like
rare. That's never happened.
Right?
Ever. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. For someone to get the number of bedrooms and baths, wrong, like whoever put that information in there, that's crazy. Because I'm assuming that they walk these houses. No, they don't walk these houses. Mm-mm. Like the information they're getting online, though, like somewhere down the line, somebody input it wrong. But how do you put in a 2-1 versus a 3-2? That's crazy. Like,
yeah. So insane. My numbers were all wrong.
Was the square footage right?
It was like 150 square feet off.
Yeah.
Not much. So all my numbers were off from the beginning. And then when we went in there, and we were only looking at properties at that point that were vacant at the auction. So that also limited our list, because I was nervous on how to deal with a property when a person lived there. I hadn't read that yet. So I was only looking at vacant houses.
You didn't get that far in the book yet.
Yeah, I hadn't got that far yet.
That's man, we talked about that too, and that's crazy. I mean, I would probably want to do the same thing. Like, I would never even think like these houses are still going to be occupied.
Yeah.
But some of these people that are getting foreclosed on, like, they just don't have anywhere else to go, or they don't want to go. Maybe they think the bank is BSing. Maybe they think, okay, I'm not going to get kicked out today, and then you got to deal with those guys.
Yeah. So that was another stepping stone or learning, area for us. So in the beginning, it was only vacant houses. So if I drove by and it looked like somebody lived there, I would just cross it off my list. So whenever I would go to the auction, I'd have a really short list compared to everybody else. You kind of like look at everybody's paper and their notes, and they had like pages, and I had like one page with
I
like
saw that.
7.
Yeah, people have like 20 houses or whatnot they're looking at.
Yeah. So we ended up buying that one. It was vacant, and so my margins were off to begin with my ARV. And then when we went in, it was probably one of the top 3 houses on how bad it was when we went in. It was covered in roaches. There was roaches in every part of the house coming out of the light switches. It was dirty. It was just a nasty house. So
was that the one with the dogs that you were telling me about?
No, that one was barely. That one's my top worst house.
Oh, okay. So this is top 3.
Yeah, this is top 3.
Oh my God.
So then my repair budget goes out the window too. So then I'm scrambling because this is all the money I had saved up for this investment because I'm not living there. I still have my own house. This is my first investment. I'm like super excited. And then me and Anthony walk in and we're like, what do we do?
Oh my God.
So
at sight unseen, you can't go inside.
Yeah, you can't go inside. So my ARV's not good. My repair budget is not good. I'm trying to figure out now what to do. So Anthony's like, okay, so we're going to have to do a lot of this work ourselves because we need to try to keep the budget down. So we were thinking, what can we do to still be net positive on this one? So it didn't end up being a flip. We actually have that house as a rental. So we bought it for $72,000 at that point. We put like 9 into it because we did it all ourselves and needed a new roof. So me and Anthony learned how to put a roof on.
Oh my God, that's not easy.
No.
I've done that.
So we put a roof. Everything hurts. Every muscle in your body hurts for like 2 weeks.
I'm sure.
But it was a good learning experience.
And was it during the summer? Because that's the worst.
Yeah, it was in the summer.
Yeah, it would be.
So we ended up renting it. It's a little house over there by like 1604 in Culebra. It's worth like $190 now. And we've had it rented for like 8 or 9 years. So it ended up being a winner.
So you're all in about 80 with it. And then now it's worth $190, but you had a renter in there for how long? 8
or 9 years. We've had the same renter. She's in housing, so it's just an automatic check every month.
It's so crazy with how equity can grow, like within that time frame. Like you almost got $100,000. Well, you got over $100,000 on that house in equity. It's insane. It took a little while, but we've had some really good years in 2020 and 21 that just helped like push everything up like crazy. And so, man, that one worked out so good for you.
Yeah.
Because at some point, what you can do with all that equity in all these houses is that you can get a loan based off that. Like, there's going to be somebody that will loan you money based off the equity you have in these houses after they look at your portfolio. If you wanted to do like a big project, like a apartment complex or a strip center, if you wanted to get into commercial, or maybe like a storage center or something like that, right? Like, there's so much leverage when you have these houses and all that equity. Like y'all have done really good.
Yeah, we try not to pull out any of the money, and we just kind of let it be.
Yeah. Because y'all are doing good too with the other stuff y'all got going on.
Yeah, and then we've always had a steady income with his job and my job, so all of it's just supplemental, I guess, if you want to call it that. So a lot of the money that we would have put like into a 401k, a traditional IRA, Roth IRA, we end up just looking at what our rate of return would be on a retirement account versus what me and him can do outside of a retirement account. So we still have investment accounts as far as retirement, but a lot of the extra money that you could have put into that, we just reinvest in.
Yeah,
ourselves.
and then it's cash flowing positive, right? You're just paying the taxes and insurance on it. And so what are you renting that one out? 16?
No, it's little. So we
Little?
rent it out for 13.
13?
Yeah.
Yeah. and he might be able to give you more out of that. But
I
that's
could.
still
But
good.
the lady lives there. She's been there forever. She actually like trims the trees and
She takes care of it.
she takes care of it.
Man,
So,
I never knew how beneficial that is when you have some good tenants that like want to stay there. You work with them.
yeah.
You definitely work with them. It makes your life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, it does. She does a lot of the stuff herself, and she really takes care of it. Every time I go, it's like even nicer than when we gave it to her. And she tells me, I'm going to die here. I'm like, girl, just don't die for too long there because it's going to stink. But
You able to joke with her like that? Damn.
Yeah.
How old is she?
She's like 79, 80.
Oh, sheesh.
She's an older lady, yeah. So she's been there for a long time.
She got like 10 years.
Yeah, so I don't really rock the boat too much. I mean, it's not worth the extra $200 I'm going to get a month to try to get a new renter and then have to turn over. Because every time we turn over a property, it's a couple $1,000 to get it rental ready again.
Yeah, you got to look at all those numbers as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so even though the rent is slightly less than probably market rent for her area, it's a win-win for both of us.
So some of my rental properties, like if I have gone up on rent, I try not to make it like too crazy. Maybe like $25 or $50, something small.
That's what we do, yeah.
And that way it's reasonable for them. Like they understand it. You know, everything's going up, right? With the cost of inflation, everything's crazy. Our taxes, insurance has gone up like crazy. So like it's a little harder for us to make, you know, the same amount of money or whatnot. And you want to work with a good tenant, but you know, if you just explain that to them and you just raise it up a little bit, I think they'll understand, right?
Yeah, no, they completely understand. We had a renter, we raised it 50, and she was not happy about it. But then I pulled a report on rentals in her area and what it went for, and I was like, look, I promise, like, I'm not trying to, like, you know, take advantage of you or, you know, overprice it. You're actually like $300 under market right now because I appreciate you being here. And she was like, okay, we'll be here for another year. I'm like, okay, like it's a win-win for both of us.
And when you actually take the time to educate them on that, I think they greatly appreciate that, because I told my tenant the same thing, and he's like, I'm gonna go out there and just search myself. I was like, be my guest, man. Let me know like next week.
He was happy.
Yeah, and then he's like, you know what, man? I think I'm gonna stay. I said, all right, cool.
Yeah, that's
You know,
usually
like,
what happens.
But you just don't realize that if you're not in the business, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Or them that haven't looked for rental, they just think you're, you know, raising it because you're trying to be greedy or make more money off them. And you're like, you know, go look, like go find something better and cheaper.
And it sucks because it's already like inflation's already hurting them, probably on the grocery side or maybe their insurance or like whatever the case is already hurting them. So then you have to make this more expensive too. So they're probably like getting hit by all different
coming
angles.
at them.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a world we live in right now, right? It's tough.
Yeah. So we always try to have a plan B on if a house doesn't work out. And then sometimes we're pleasantly surprised. I think a house is going to be a little bit rougher when I drove by, but then whenever we walk in, it's like, oh, everything's intact and clean, and it's not going to be the big project that we
Today's
thought.
a good day.
Yeah, today's a good day. So we've had a couple of those nice surprises where you just go in and it's maybe like updating some countertops or updating the master bath from like a cheap plastic surround to a nice tile surround, and that's it. Clean it up and you're ready to sell.
What do you think the best house you've ever done netted you, or like the easiest house ever netted you? Like, I know you look at time and also the money you put into it, but what was one of the easiest projects you've ever did?
Wholesale.
Huh?
Wholesale houses.
Oh, the wholesale, yeah. Okay, yeah, we could talk about that because I know some of these houses you get into and maybe Anthony doesn't have the time to do it, or maybe it's not worth y'all's time in general, and you have a group of investors that will actually buy these houses from you, and so you wholesale it and you make a quick maybe like $7,000-10,000 or something like that off the wholesale. Walk me through that, like how that works when you decide to wholesale it and why.
So I didn't really know what wholesaling was whenever I started, but then going to the auctions, there's always a wholesale company that
There's a lot there.
is trying to talk to you and started reading again. What is that? What do they do? So then I was like, oh, they just try to be the middleman and make all the money.
That's exactly what they do.
But their profit margins,
They go
are
to the
really
auction too,
insane.
and they buy, and then they try to wholesale to other investors. Yeah.
So I've never bought a property from one of the wholesale companies here. There wasn't just enough profit margin in it for us.
Yeah.
So whenever I sell that, I always keep that in mind. I try to leave as much on the bone as possible for the next investor.
The end buyer.
Yeah, they're the one that is going to do all the work. And, that it's kind of crazy how you're trying to make 30 and then they're going to make 20 and did everything at the end. So when I do wholesales, I'm not trying to make, $30,000-$40,000 on a wholesale. If I can buy it and get rid of it in 14 days and make 7, 8, 9, 10 grand, like that to me is a good 2 weeks. So
for sure.
Those have been the easiest ones so far. So some of the properties we've gotten from auctions, some now that we've done this for quite a while, we have a lot of friends and family, friends of friends that have told them like, oh, hey, I know this person that can buy your house cash and it's easy, no inspections, close in 5 to 7 days, however long it takes title to provide the title commitment and insurance. And
so you'll pick up deals from word of mouth.
Yeah,
That's
lot of
awesome.
word of mouth.
Yeah.
A lot of realtors. So if a realtor is selling a property, like maybe the parents died and the kids are like, oh, hey, I don't know what to do with this house, then the realtor will call us and be like, hey, I have this person who might want to sell a house quick and here's their number. Or we've even gotten people who want to sell their house and Anthony actually gets called as the contractor because they think they have to make all these repairs before they sell their house. And so Anthony's like, well, instead of me fixing your house, what if I just buy your house? And they're like, oh, even better. Like, I don't have to spend money on repairs. I don't have to list it. I don't have to keep it clean.
Yeah.
Like, we make him an offer, and we've gotten quite a few houses like that too, where he goes to give him a bid on construction, but then we ended up buying it and then either flip it ourselves or wholesale it. So,
Dude, that's awesome.
yeah, wholesale's been nice for us, especially whenever I was still working. We added kids to the mix, so full-time job, kids. Anthony's business is doing really good.
So 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah. So it was just easier sometimes to wholesale than to flip. Or if I had a flip but I couldn't let a deal get by me, I'll figure out. There's been maybe 3 or 4 times where I have literally spent all of mine and my husband's money just to buy a house because it was too good to pass up.
And then you made money, though.
I made money.
You suffered for a little bit, then you made money.
Yeah, he was not happy. There's been a lot of nights where we're up like, damn, how are we going to do this? Or I get home and he's like, what did you do?
Yeah, stressing him out, dude.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit more of a risk taker than he is. Lately, though, I'm probably a little bit more conservative, and he's like, just do it. We'll figure it out. So, it's always worked. We've never not made money, so it's a lot of
that's pretty awesome.
sleepless nights trying to figure out what to do.
Maybe there's been some times where like you've had to pivot. You had to go a different direction, like that rental that you did.
Yeah.
You didn't think it was going to be a rental, but it turned out to be a great rental. And so I think if you're open-minded and not so fixed on what you want to do, but the overall goal is let's make money, right? Let's build wealth. I think if you keep that in mind, you can always find a different way to do it.
Yeah.
Like some of these houses, like you may be sometimes in a bind, but you have a house that you were about to flip, but now you need to wholesale it. And good thing you have these connections where you can do that. How did you get the connections to be able to wholesale? Like, where'd you meet these investors at to be able to do that? I know you have one main guy you go through.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how I met him. I don't remember. I've probably known him for like 10 years too. I try not to burn any bridges with anybody I work with. There could be a lot of shady people when it comes to real estate. And
Whenever there's money involved, for sure.
So I try to be pretty honest and say what I think is true. Like, I don't ever try to inflate an ARV or say that a house doesn't need repairs whenever I know it does. Like, I try to give the full picture, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, then it might work for somebody else, like
Honest wholesaler.
Yeah, like there's
Those
no
are rare.
point. Yeah, so I've had the couple contacts that I do have that are my buyers I've known for a long time, and I think it's because of that. So there's been deals too where I'm like, hey, you send me this contact this one time and I ended up selling a house, like let me give you a kickback for that, because it was you that really brought me that person a couple years back.
Yeah.
So it's keeping those kind of connections open. You know what I mean? Like giving.
It's just making him want to help you more.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't have to. I could have gone behind somebody's back to sell a house and cut somebody out. But we try not to do that because in the end, it's actually helped us. The same thing with contractors. Like we never burn any of our contractors. And there's been a couple of times where they've come in real clutch. There was a house in Converse that we were going to sell. And at the last minute, they're like, oh, well, you know what? We need the foundation fixed before we close on it 4 days before closing.
Dang.
And I was like, okay, we'll fix that. And they're like, no, we're going to have to terminate contract because there's no way you can have that repair done in 4 days. And I was like, bitch, bet. I'm not letting this one go. So we have a foundation guy that we worked with for a while, and I was like, dude, I need a huge favor.
4 days is crazy.
I got 4 days. I was like, I need you to fix the foundation, get an inspection, and get me an engineer's report. And sure enough, the day of closing, we got everything and ended up closing on that house. And it was a sleepless 4 days, but
I'm sure.
Yeah, we were all there working. I never knew how hard it was to dig a hole.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we
found out firsthand.
Yeah, making that one work. Same thing, we had a plumber one time. We had a leak right before closing. It was a slab leak. So it was not just like, oh, fix a little leak under the sink. So we had a guy working there like 2 days straight, like slept there. I took him food, took him everything he needed.
You had to dig up and under.
Yeah, we ended up finishing right before closing and got an inspection and ended up closing on that house. So it's been beneficial to have those good relationships because every now and then you might need to call in that favor.
Anthony has some solid guys and some solid teams for sure. One thing I love about Anthony is I never have to worry about him doing the right thing and also like keeping me up to date and then also staying on schedule because it's so tough with all these different jobs you got going on. Any contractor that I talk to, like the schedules are always like
schedule's the hardest.
Very sketch, and it's not always their fault. It's just stuff comes up, and so like Anthony's been very, very on point, very punctual with stuff. Gives me a good time frame and an idea of what's going on and what it's going to take. Pretty on point with his quotes and stuff, especially at this point. So I don't know if he told you, I just set him up with another job 2 weeks ago. He's working on it right now, and he's saying it should be done by Friday. These clients that I had, they wanted to sell their current house, but they just bought another house with me. But I really feel like it was kind of outdated a little bit and needed a little bit of work here and there, like definitely paint inside. I was like, what if we just paint the outside too and make it more like modern in general? Because paint can go a long way inside and out. And then there's a couple repairs I needed here and there. So I just asked Anthony to like quote the whole bid, and he did it all like over the phone through text message. I sent him pictures, and he's like, hey, it's going to cost you this, cost you that. How big is it? What does it have? This and that. And he was, quoted me all over the phone. Didn't even see the property.
So that's how you can tell if somebody's a good person at whatever they do. So recently you sent me a pest control company. One of my houses, my rental houses, has termites.
How'd that work out? Yeah.
Yeah, so then I called this one company, and I'm like, hey, I think I have this kind of termite. I forgot what it's called. Subterranean, I think.
Yeah, subterranean, I think.
That's better than the dust wood, driftwood ones, dry wood. I was reading about termites. But
of course.
I don't know how much it would cost me. And so the first guy that I called, he was like, well, I don't know. I need to go see it, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, never mind. So then I called the second guy that you sent me, and he's like, okay, how big's the house? Do you have a picture? I sent him like 2 pictures, and he's like, okay, it'll cost you between, and he could give me a range within a couple $100.
Cool.
I was like, that's how I know that somebody is good at what they do, because they've done this so many times that they can give you a price range on what it's going to be.
That's experience right there.
Yeah.
And confidence too.
So that's how I know whenever I'm talking to somebody. So lately I've had to get my own contractors because Anthony's too busy to help me on my jobs. And
got your own flips going on now.
Yes. And he's been like, I guess, my safety net. So whenever we were starting, it's probably because we both worked together and had our own strengths that we could make it work, that made it that much easier.
Definitely, yeah.
Even though it's still hard.
Mm-hmm.
If it was easy, I feel like everybody would do it. Everybody's like, oh, I can do it. They see the shows on TV and they watch one 30-minute show but don't realize that was actually 6 weeks of work.
Yeah,
So
you're in line.
yeah, they think it's like so easy, but if it was that easy, everyone would do it. We've had a lot of sleepless nights going through investors when you're asking how did I meet them. Same thing with contractors. It's just trial and error. You meet people and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to work with that guy again. So it's just a lot of,
I've had a lot of those too.
yeah, a lot of strikeouts before you get people that are actually good.
There's red flags too. Like I think the more you work with certain contractors and the stuff that they say or how they say it, their body language, like when you're meeting with them, there's certain telltale signs. You're like, I don't think I'm gonna use this guy. I just don't got a good feeling about it.
Yeah, always go with your gut feeling.
Yeah, for sure. And then anybody who wants to get paid up front, like that's a huge red flag. I feel because I think the good contractors that do plenty of business and feel confident about what they do,
Don't need the money.
they're fine to get paid at the end.
Or midway.
If it's a huge job, yeah, maybe midway. Huge job. Like I've had some foundation people ask me like maybe half up front. It depends on what the job is too and how much you trust these guys. But I think that's something to look out for too. Like anybody trying to ask for a whole bunch of money up front,
yeah.
like it's tough.
And it goes both ways because as a contractor too, you also don't want to. I understand where they're coming from. They're like, man, I don't know you either. Like I'm going to do all this work, spend my hours here, and then you don't pay me. So it's always like
that's tough too. Yeah,
a middle ground. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it depends. Foundation guys, it is very common to have half the money up front and then the other half, or maybe 25% in the middle, and then at the very end when they're done, the other 25%. Yeah. So it also depends the trade.
Definitely.
On what like the norm is.
Yeah, this recent job, Anthony had us put down 25% up front, but it's a huge job. Like he quoted us like $10,000 on that one.
Yeah, most of the time it's for materials. So a lot of times the contractor's like, okay, well, give me the money up front for materials at least. I'm like, okay. And then as a good faith, a lot of times I'll be like, you know what, work 1 week and that first Friday, like I'll pay you just to build that rapport so you know I'm not going to try and gyp you. But at the same time, I'm also trusting you too that you're not just going to ditch me with the half-done job. So it's a little bit of both. But in the very beginning, if you don't get a good feeling, even though y'all have already started, I would say just pay him for what he's done, cut your losses, and try and find somebody else.
Yeah.
The longer you stick with somebody that you have a bad feeling about, the worse it's going to be because the next person's going to have to come back and probably tear.
You've had some of those instances?
Yeah, all the work that first guy did whenever you knew you should have just kind of cut those ties, but it's hard to fire somebody.
Anthony, it is.
Get somebody new in the middle of a job.
Anthony had to save me on one of my flips, and like luckily like we netted positive, but dude, it was a headache, man. And I don't know if he told you about this one, but man, these guys like they started off really good, and we were paying them per like progress. And so like every week, we're like, okay, what'd you get done? Okay, cool, we'll pay you this. You know, what do you think you need, this and that. So like his reasoning for getting paid his amount or the amount he wanted was, oh, I need to pay my guys because now I had like a certain amount of guys in here. Like so I have.
It's always that I gotta pay my guys.
Yeah, I gotta pay my guys. Yeah. And so he's like, if you didn't get something done, it's like, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like it doesn't look like you got much done. What did you do? Like looks the same as last week. And so we paid him more than we should have up front or like, you know, during the process. And then when he just finally like quit on us one day and no call, no show, like wouldn't answer, I brought Anthony in there and he's like, dude, he did this all like wrong, like way wrong. We got to gut this whole bathroom. So one bathroom had to be gutted. One had to be completed. He's like, this flooring's okay. Like it'll pass. Like it's not the best, but it'll be okay. But it was a shower, and so he had to gut the whole thing.
Those are the hardest ones because then if you don't do it right, you're gonna have like leaks and mold and.
Oh, for sure. So I was like, man, inspect the whole house, you know, like see what else, because he did this, he did that, and he's like, okay, like this needs to be redone. This I can do. This is fine, and so we just had him end up finishing the flip. It's really who you know in this business, and if you can trust them, if they have experience.
That's probably the hardest part. Is finding a good GC.
It is tough. I've used a number of them for different projects I've done, and I should have just went with Anthony every time. I think the times that I got these flips, Anthony was like a month out or a month and a half out, you know, to do a flip like that, a job like that. And so like it was just a matter of timing, but you should have waited. It would have been worth it. I was gonna ask you, so your contracts you're getting right now, how are you getting them? Like you were getting referred, or you just finding them online, or
Where did I find him? Oh, I found him on the Nextdoor app. So I
Nextdoor?
put out,
Yeah.
like a recommendations post for people who have had work done before.
Okay.
And then
So looking for referrals.
Yeah, and then it just ended up happening that I had talked to him before, and I was like still kind of nervous. And then Anthony had hired some extra guys, so he's like, hey, I have some guys that can kind of help you. So then I didn't have a GC, but I can kind of act as somewhat of the GC. So then I had a little bit of guys there at my job site, and then I had a vanity on sale for OfferUp, and some lady was like, yeah, I want it. And she's like, I'm going to send my contractor over to go pick it up because I don't have a truck. And the guy that showed up was actually a guy that I had talked to before about possibly doing some work at the flip house that I was working on.
James with My Insurance Group with a brief interruption to this podcast. It is currently being shot in the My Insurance Group studios. So My Insurance Group is a local insurance brokerage. We are 5-star rated, and we provide policies for homeowners, auto insurance, and commercial business needs. So if you're looking for a great insurance agent, check out the number in the link below. We will definitely get you an insurance quote, or if one of your friends or family members needs a great insurance agent, keep us in mind, and keep the My Insurance Group podcast studio in mind when you're trying to shoot video. Thank you.
So I was like, okay, so this is fate. Like I had talked to him, and then some random guy shows up, and it just happened to be him. So that's why I ended up. Yeah. So he was like, oh, have I talked to you before? Because I don't have a very common name. So he's like, I don't know a lot of Lucindas. And some Lucinda called me. And I'm like, oh, it was probably me. And so I'm going through my notes, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I did talk to you. And so I'm like, you want to go see the job? And he's like, yeah. So luckily he was not as good as far as workmanship as Anthony. But still.
Anthony's good. So
yeah.
It's tough to find that, yeah.
Yeah, but he was pretty good. His prices were reasonable, and he showed up every day on time, which is, like you said, when they show up late or they're just don't go for a couple days, it was like, nah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there every day. This is what I'm going to have done. Yeah, by this date. And then there's some days that he'll be there till like 6 o'clock because he's like, well, we said on Friday we were going to have this done, and, I'm not done yet, so I'm going to have to stay late these 2 days. And so he's just really reliable. So I've used him now for like 2 or 3 houses.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then he does all my little like ticky-tack stuff at rentals.
And some of these flips, like you said, he may not be the best quality, but he's very punctual on time. He gets the job done. Like timeline-wise, he wants to be punctual about it. And some of these flips, I feel like, depending on what you're doing, the quality doesn't have to be like necessarily the best of the best, I feel, but as long as it's done right, I feel like that's the most important thing. Some stuff like that you're always going to see it every day, like that's kind of like eye level, or like the kitchen, I feel like it's got to be really good. Some of the bathrooms, places where you're at a lot, and like you've been through this a number of times. You have the experience. You know what to look for. You know like what's passable, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
For the average person coming in and buying this house or renting the house.
And it does make a difference. Like we've had realtors when we're selling our house, they're like, oh my God, we've seen so many houses that have been flips, but the workmanship here is just different. And it's those little things you do. It's not overspray on doorknobs and light switches. It's clean cuts. It's just those details make a difference when somebody's looking at houses, I feel like. At least that's been my feedback.
And you know what to look for too.
Yeah, so she's like, the other ones are just not sloppy, but just done in a hurry and ready to go, and paying that attention to detail.
I've seen a lot of bad ones in this line of work for sure, to where you could just tell, like, I don't know, man, a lot of this work looks sketch, and I just like don't have a good feeling about this house.
Yeah, and it makes you think, okay, if that's what you see, what's going on that you don't see?
What don't you see?
Yeah,
for sure. You definitely got to question everything. But I would say for anybody listening, anybody thinking about getting in flips and investing like this, like the main source of contractors, I think, should be referrals. So by somebody you trust, and those contractors have done work for them. And
don't always go with the cheapest one. That's probably the worst mistake you can make, is if you get like 3 or 4 bids and you're like, okay, I'm just going to go with the cheapest one because I'm trying to save money. You're probably going to cost you more money. I
would ask for like pictures or examples and stuff like that. Like if it's somebody that they probably got work done by them. So then go check it out yourself, see the quality of it. Uh, Even a realtor, like I know a ton of contractors that I can refer now. I love using Anthony. There's a couple other ones that I like using as well. And so I think just a referral from a reliable source.
I completely agree. If it's a referral, then it's probably good. And not a referral like, oh, they came and they tightened my sink that was loose in my kitchen and now you want them to do a whole kitchen remodel. Like, oh, maybe not. Like somebody that's actually done that before.
Yeah.
And doesn't have any problems with it and didn't have any issues. And somebody that's willing to go back. I think that's also the biggest thing. So,
dude, that's a good point.
yeah, like if you find something that's wrong or that they did incorrectly or that you're just not satisfied with, if they try to give you a hard time about it or try to charge you more because of their mistake, it's a big red flag. Like somebody should have enough pride in their work that they will go back and fix it.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think is very important, like the pridemanship.
Yeah.
For sure. And you can tell by just talking to them and like you said, pointing stuff out or asking them questions, and they'll, you'll be able to tell, I think.
Yeah.
And it takes some experience and some practice, but it's a
lot
tough
of trial and
business.
error. It is. It's hard.
It's a tough business for sure.
And if you make a mistake, it usually costs you quite a bit. They're not cheap mistakes.
Hey, but you'll never make that mistake again.
That's true.
Most of the time, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing, man. So our memories are directly tied to emotions. So like if there's a big mistake that you made, you feel that thing. You're not going to forget.
No, you're not going to forget. You're not going to sleep for a little bit because you're going to be like, how am I going to get myself out of this one? And you're like, I'm never doing that again.
Stressing for days.
Yeah, it's a lot of stress, a lot of sleepless nights, at least for me. I'm trying to figure out, like, how are we going to make this still work?
Sheesh, man. Well, it's been quite a journey, right? So how many houses do y'all have now for rentals? Because y'all have done a lot of flips and then kind of picked up a house every now and then to like buy and hold.
I think we have 9. Yeah, we have 9 rentals right now and then 3 houses on the market.
And you said there might be another one you might rent out, or you're deciding.
Yeah, we might rent one of the houses that we have on market. My plan B.
Yeah. And some of these have mortgages on them, or no? No, none of them have mortgages. So.
Oh, one. We took out a cash out refi on one house.
Yeah. And that's another thing you can do, right? What can you get for a cash out refi on an investment? How much can you get? It's like 70%?
We got 70% on our, yeah.
And then you can do another project with that.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we were needing even more capital because we try to buy all these houses with our own money instead of using hard money to avoid a lot of the fees and interest on them. So the interest, the APR at the bank was lower than what we would get for a hard money loan. So that's why we just ended up pulling the money from
all day, right? Makes sense all day.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about the hard money lenders. You haven't used a hard money lender, right? You haven't had to use one. So Carlos, you know Carlos, right? I found out recently he became a mortgage broker, and he's half as cheap as upfront costs as a normal like hard money lender. When I started doing hard money, I was telling you I was paying 3% upfront, and then typically the interest rates anywhere from like 10 to 12. I think I was paying 12% interest only payments for, however long you have the house. Is a 6-month term, but I think we were paying interest on it for at least 4 or 5 months. At that 12% is huge, and then that cost up front is huge. So Carlos, with his company, he can get hard money deals at 1.5% up front, which is huge. And then I think he's at 10% for rate or somewhere around there. So save you a little bit of money on both ends. But the fact that he can do it now is cool.
And I think he did it quickly because we referred somebody there. So we had a buyer who was going to be one of my wholesale buyers who was working with the hard money lender. And the hoops that she had to jump through, like Anthony has insurance because he has his GC license, right, for X amount of money, and they wanted him. So he has it, I think, for like $1.5 million. Like it would cover. She's doing some little like house that we were selling to her for, I don't know, maybe like $80,000. It was a small little house by the Frost Bank Center, and they wanted him to have, I think, insurance of like $3 million. And Anthony's like, "There's nothing on your property that costs $3 million." Like, so he's like, "It's gonna cost me X amount of money to like double my insurance, and he knows her, so I guess they've worked together before on other projects. I didn't know her, and he's like, okay, fine.
So she was trying to get an investment loan through a bank, or
no, through a hard money lender.
A hard money lender?
Hard money wanted Anthony to have double the amount of insurance.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, he wanted her to have, I don't know how much money in the bank as a reserve. And then they wanted her to have, so every time we got close to closing, it was like, oh, wait, they want this one thing. Okay, now they want this one more thing. Okay, now they want this one more thing. And I'm like, girl, this was supposed to be like a quick 10-day close. Like, we're at 21 days now.
Hard money is typically quick. Yeah, 10 days is pretty normal.
Yeah, so 10, 14 days maybe, I'm okay with. So then she was getting frustrated too, because she's like, I need to start this project. Like, this is what I do for a living. Like, the quicker I can start it, the quicker I can get out of it.
She's experienced too.
So
Why was she not using like the other hard money she used to use?
I think she's used them before, but I don't know why they were getting a lot stricter. So then
Weird.
Anthony's like, well, I know this guy, which is Carlos, who can help you out with the hard money loan. So I think she ended up going with him. I don't really ask too many questions on that side of it.
Yeah.
But I think they ended up closing the deal with one of his hard money lenders. And it was quick.
I'll bring Carlos on here in a week or two and talk about hard money lenders for anybody who's interested in learning about that. But it's pretty simple. Like, you just typically they look at like a 650 credit score, and they want to see 6 months reserved for payments for the hard money loan, and then they want to see a little bit of cash in the bank for rehab, like just to know that you have that. But they'll loan typically 100% of the rehab, and then 90% of the cost of the house. Like, they'll loan a good amount. Now they're all closing cost fees, and like you have to pay for your insurance up front, title policy. There's other fees up front, so it's not. I mean, it's not. Like incredibly cheap, because I think your closing costs will probably be like anywhere from 20 to 30, depending on the size of the home and what you're doing with it. But still, it's the avenue to get into the business.
Yeah, it's like a good starting point.
Yeah.
Or it's a good way to leverage your money if you have the time to.
Because at this point, you're not really finding a house at $60,000, right?
Yeah.
You know,
it's hard.
unless it's like tiny on the south side, and you need to put $100,000 into it.
I think I bought one for like 63, like a few months ago, like 6 months ago, and that was not as far as like bugs and grossness, but that was my most. What's a good word? My most deconstructed house that I've bought. We have done quite a few projects. I have never been overwhelmed. And whenever I walked in the house,
everything.
It didn't even have like rooms. There was like no wall on one side, pretty much. The floors were plywood, but not even like solid. It was very deconstructed.
So it was like somebody was trying to rehab it, or what?
I don't know what they were even trying to do. There was
It
what
got
I thought was a
gutted,
kitchen. There was
right?
like a sink with one cabinet, and maybe where the fridge would get plugged in. There was a room with a bathroom in it, but it wasn't a whole bathroom. It was just like a sink, and then you'd like walk through this hallway, and then the shower was back there. I was very overwhelmed. I was like, I don't even know where to start. Luckily, we wholesaled that house. Anthony was like, dude, even if we take a loss, I don't even care if we take our first loss ever. Just get rid of this Lucinda. I'm like, okay. We ended up making a little bit of money off of it. But yeah, we wholesaled it to.
So y'all didn't even start on it because you're like, there's no way.
There's no way. I was like, I will sell it for whatever it cost me, because, yeah, I messed this one up real bad.
What'd you end up wholesaling it for?
73.
Damn.
I think.
What was the ARV
31?
on that one?
I don't even know. I comped it at like 140, but the buyer comped it like at 190.
How?
It was like in an area where it was hit or miss, and then depending on how big you made it. So on BCAT, it said it was like
add-on?
Yeah, it was an older property, so it had a huge yard.
Pier and beam?
Pier and beam. So it would be easy to add on because you're already going to be doing everything on it.
For sure.
Yeah,
And it was already gutted.
pretty much.
Yeah, he probably saw an avenue to make it bigger. I've talked to a couple of investors that look at adding on, doing additions, because they're like, if we're already in this area and we're already doing this and that, like you said, like we're already going to do foundation and we're going to move stuff around, let's look at adding on, and that can add you so much more money at the end of the day, and the add-on's not going to cost you like an arm and a leg. Like, I mean, it's going to be expensive, but what you can make out of it is huge. And I've heard about a couple investors doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So he was one of the investors that I have on tap now, that I usually reach out to before I start marketing it on any of the other
I'm interested to see what he does to that one.
I know. I was excited too.
Yeah.
That was the first house I ever sold to him, and I
Like,
was like,
if you want to take this on, man,
contract.
like.
Yeah, I was like, you're better than me, because I don't even know where to start. That was gonna be bad. Yeah, Anthony was not happy about that one.
Are you good at seeing the vision, or like before?
Most of the houses, yeah. That one I was just in shock, and so finally I went back like 3 days later, and I was like, okay, if we don't wholesale this, like, what am I gonna do? So we went back, and I'm like, okay, if we put a wall here, we can add this here, we can put the AC over here, because there was no AC. There was like wires, but no AC. And then I was kind of like, okay, now I need to.
Do you use like an app or a software to like help like draw out the floor plan and like decide where you're gonna move stuff, if you're gonna move walls or whatnot?
No. So Anthony's my software. So I'll go and I just kind of do like an outline of the house. And I'm like, I wanted the kitchen here, and I want this here, and there's already plumbing here, so I'm thinking we could put the bathroom here.
He's like, we can't do that.
And then he'll be like, no, you can't do that. You should move the bathroom to this wall because it'll be cheaper, and then put your kitchen sink here. And then from there, we can kind of like draw it out.
Gotcha.
So I have the ideas, and then he's my realistic person on what I can move where, and then we find a happy medium.
He knows a lot about like
and then what walls I can't move,
the load
because
bearing
that's load
walls.
bearing, so that's going to cost us $4,000 instead of
that
$400.
didn't stop you at the new house.
And no, I took down all the walls.
You're taking down everything.
All the walls.
Dude, that house is so nice, and you like gutted everything.
But we live there,
Yeah.
so it's different.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we're not working.
That was your number
Airbnb.
one push.
Yeah.
Number one cause for doing it.
Yeah, but then we kind of go back and forth too. Like, yes, even though it's going to cost a little bit more money, how fast are we going to sell it? So if it cost us $2,000 to do something instead of $200, but we're going to be on the market, 3 months less, then it might be
That's
beneficial.
super important, right? Because in every day you're losing a little bit of money, especially if you're doing hard money, because every day is like crazy,
it costs
crazy.
you a lot.
I was gonna ask you, how are you looking up your comps these days? Do you have access to MLS? No, so you're looking up on like Zillow, or how are you looking at BCAD to kind of see what being taxed at?
I look at the appraisal value. Historically, what you can sell it for was slightly above BCAT's appraisal, maybe about 10 to 15%.
Yeah, you notice that.
But lately, it's actually been less than what BCAT has appraised.
Some of them have, yeah. Some have been kind of on par or a little less.
Yeah, I would say about 60% of the houses I had on the last auction, whenever I comped them, were either at or less than what BCAT had on the appraisal. So I look at that, and then I also look at what other, just on the platforms like Realtor and Zillow, Redfin, what the other houses are selling for that are like ours, as far as stories, bedrooms, square feet.
Can you see days on the market on that, or are you just going by the average? Okay.
You can see days on the market, and then you can see pending houses as well. So I look at what's on the market, but what's more important is what's pending, because that's what somebody actually wanted to buy.
What's about to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can look at active listings all day. That's not going to give you the comp value.
Yeah. So if there's a lot of active that have a lot of days on the market, then usually my estimate will be less than what those are listed at, because I'm like, those aren't selling. So
well, because the average days on the market is probably like around 70 right now, but y'all are selling around 30 with y'all's flips, right?
Yeah, most of the time we'd be on the market like 2 weeks.
Quick.
Right now, we're at like 42 days on 44 days, and I'm nervous. But Anthony's like, it's normal.
Yeah, no, you'll be fine. We talked
So
about
that's
that
my
one.
plan B. So I'm like, oh my God, we need to rent it already. He's like, no.
Already freaking out.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you too, like anybody looking to get in this business, like I've helped you list a couple houses as well, but now you've got so experienced that you always list your own houses on Zillow, and then you have somebody that you use just to get you on MLS, right? That you pay like a flat fee to or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's called 123 Realty. They have a website. Brenda Zambrano is the broker. So I pay a flat fee of $149, and I send her the pictures and the data listing form, and we sign a contract, and it's a listing for 6 months, and she listed on MLS. So that's how I've been selling my properties.
Yeah, so you take all the pictures though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she's doing is just listing it for you.
Yeah, so I just send her the info, and she just puts it on MLS.
And then you create a separate listing for Zillow.
No, she puts it goes on all the platforms.
It syndicates, yeah.
Yeah, populates on everything.
Okay. Yeah, man, that's a pretty good deal right there.
Yeah, so it saves quite a bit of commission.
Yeah, but you are not the average investor. I'll tell you that right now, especially when it comes to like listing the home and stuff like that.
Why?
Huh?
What do you mean?
Well, when it comes to in a good way, when it comes to like looking at the comps and like knowing what stuff is worth and how fast it's gonna sell and like the ARVs and stuff like that, not the everyday person, unless you're really deeply in it and been doing it, is gonna know all that stuff. So that's why, in the beginning, you know, you need to reach out to somebody who knows the market for sure. But you've gotten so good at doing all that stuff, which is very, very impressive.
Yeah, seeing it all the time, you get good. But it's always good. I always reach out to you every now and then for random questions or what do you think? Or we were just talking about like days on the market lately and the months of supply in San Antonio. Like that's something that I don't see as often as you do.
Yeah. I mean, months of supply in San Antonio is like crazy high right now, like 5 months. And we haven't seen that in a minute. Because I already even know pre-COVID we were staying around 4, maybe 4.5. But houses were still moving pretty quick before COVID. During
COVID, that's when we made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or a decent amount of money.
Yeah, because y'all were still able to buy a lot of like houses. Was auction going on during that time?
Not during COVID, but we had a couple properties that we had rentals that we sold, and
because that was money making season right there.
Yeah, prices were really high. Higher than I think all the properties that we sold during COVID. We had multiple offers that went for higher than even what I thought was top market price. And I was like, there's no way people are paying this.
It was so crazy what's happening. You can list it for top market price and still get 20,000 over.
Yes. It was like 20,000 over. No inspection. But I was like, my God.
Waiving appraisals.
It was great.
Dude.
It was a great time to sell.
It was, y'all banked on that.
Yeah.
We made that area for sure that season.
Yeah. We ended up selling the house that we lived in because we didn't have to pay any taxes on that money. So we moved a little bit sooner than we wanted to, but because we really liked our house. It was a really nice house. But then we found the house that you sold us, and so we're like, we're out. Let's go.
I haven't been to the new house in a while. I need to go check it out.
We just built a pavilion.
Huh?
We just built a pavilion.
Oh, nice.
I think we're going to build a casita in the back now. We'll see.
4?
Why not?
Damn,
like a little pool house casita kind of thing. In case people want to stay, like they could have like a
guest house.
Yeah, like
guest house. If you ever have anybody over, family maybe.
Yeah, like a little kitchenette and a full bath and a bedroom.
That's cool.
So we'll see.
I think we touched on pretty much everything that I wanted to touch on. Went through the foreclosure process and how that all works, and you know where you started, where you're at now.
Yeah, you gotta take money.
What's the goal in the future for y'all? Where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years? You know, on the track that you're on now, like y'all can do pretty much anything you want to do. You've learned so much about the market. Is the goal ever to get into any type of commercial stuff, or just continue to do what you're doing, collect rental properties, or do y'all have something in mind?
We've been wanting to branch out into new builds, but multifamily new builds. So over the rentals, we've noticed that the multifamily has a better return rate as opposed to a single family, but we started getting into single families. Most of our rentals have been because something didn't work out. The ARV was not what we thought. Our repair budget was a lot higher than we anticipated. There was, needs that the house needed that I couldn't see whenever we drove by. So whenever I'm driving by these houses, I either...
what are you trying to make on those houses typically when you're flipping them?
Kind of we talked about like ROI.
Yeah.
I try to make somewhere around 20%, but it also depends on how much time I'm going to be there and the amount of investment. So if it's going to be a lower end flip, like you're buying it for $60,000, you're going to maybe sell it for like $120,000. I might even want to make more return on investment because it's such a small dollar amount, as opposed to if we're trying to sell a house that's 400,000, 20% is,
It's a good amount.
yeah, a good amount. So I'm okay with making, sometimes like 14 on that one because
Sure.
the actual dollar amount is worth it for us.
Do you have a minimum dollar amount? Like you're looking at maybe at minimum 30 on the house or 40 on the house, or something like that. And like,
I mean, it'd be nice to make 30 on all the houses, but that house that I told you, the shit house that had like 17 dogs in it, I think we made somewhere in the teens. After I worked there for like 5 weeks straight. But I was okay with that. I was like, we made something.
at least you made something.
Yeah, at least everybody made a little bit of money. My return on investment was minimal. So my initial going into it, I was like, oh, we're going to make like maybe 35 on this one. Yeah, it didn't work out. We needed foundation on it. So,
Unexpected.
yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah, so I mean, you always want to make the most amount of money for the least amount of time, but I feel like as long as you're not losing.
You take the good with the bad, because I know you've had some really good ones too.
Yeah, we've had houses where you make, 70,000, and then we've had this house where I made like 14 or
Yeah.
something. So,
When you start averaging all out, like you do well. You definitely do well. But you got to have some type of, I feel, formula and like some type of minimums. Like you said, if you just don't feel like it's gonna work out, then you alternate them to rentals.
yeah, the profit margin's too small, then we'll either rent it or maybe wholesale it, and maybe I'll make the same amount, but without 5 weeks of work and
Yeah.
all the work it takes to flip a house, picking the stuff and making sure your guys are showing up and work's getting done right and making payments, and all that is time consuming and stressful. So
Definitely.
it's just easier to
When you start
sometimes
going
ditch
through,
it.
you're gonna realize how much your time's worth.
Yes. How much it takes, how many times you're gonna have to drive to this house.
For sure.
How many phone calls you're going to take, how many questions you're going to get asked, how many decisions you have to make. It's a lot of decisions.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't even say it gets easier. It's just as hard, but it's easier to cope with the more you do it.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You're just
Doesn't
used to
get
it
easier.
now more, so it's like it's almost second nature, but it's still difficult. Very, very time consuming for sure, without a doubt. A lot of mental stress, mentally straining on you.
Yeah, always thinking
Because
about it.
every little decision you make can impact a ton of stuff.
Yeah, you're always going to second guess yourself. Maybe I should have moved that. Maybe I should have picked this color. Maybe I should have did that. Maybe I should have hired this other guy. It's a lot.
It goes on and on.
Yeah, it's a lot of mental strain. So it doesn't get easier. It just, you're better at coping with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so you talked about maybe getting into building soon, and maybe like multiplexes, duplexes, quadplexes, or what do you think?
I would like a fourplex. Right now, all the multifamilies are selling for, I will call them market value. So it's hard for me to purchase something that's market value. Even if it's rented or going to be rented, just the rate of return is not what I'm looking for. So we're looking for properties that's already zoned, which is kind of what you're sending me.
Yeah, multifamily.
Yeah, and then looking at how much it would be cost per square foot, and then if we build one story, do we have enough room for parking? If we build them 2-story, I mean, the cost is cheaper per square foot
Definitely.
if you're building up instead of out. But then just what side of town are they on? How long do tenants usually stay in there? Because
There's some like
having-
townhomes and duplexes I think going up around the Pearl area, like in general.
yeah, that's a good side. Usually people will stay there for about a year or two, but a lot of times those are younger people that end up moving to something that's more suburban in a few years. So I don't know. It's a give or take. I would rather have a property that somebody is there for a long time instead of 1 to 2 years that I have to keep.
And you can look up that
Doing
too,
it
like kind of like how long people are staying in the houses and stuff like that, as far as renters, or where is a better rental area in general. There's certain areas that are just like better for renting. Like there's a ton of renters in certain areas of town.
Yeah.
So you're looking kind of in those areas.
You'll rent them quickly. Like a lot of rentals around any of our military bases, they usually rent quickly, but they're
I can see that.
short term.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Usually the longer term rentals are where there's nice schools. People want their kids to go to a nice school, but they just can't afford to buy a house. But they'll stay there because their kid's in school and they don't want to move because they don't want to take their kid out of school. So those are usually where your longer term, where I've noticed our longer term rentals people have stayed. It's because of
you have some experience. Where are your houses at?
They're everywhere.
Do you have a certain area you look at, like,
no,
for
because
flips
none of my
or
rentals are meant to be rentals.
But you never, like, had a certain area for flips? Like, did you try to stay away from any areas? There's certain areas I would stay away from.
Well, yeah.
You say yeah.
Yeah, there's certain areas that we focus more on. And I usually weed those out by zip code. So whenever I get my auction list, it comes in an Excel. So then I'll just filter out the zip codes that either I don't want to work at, they're too far from me, or I've noticed there's not a lot of movement there lately. If I'll look at days on the market and everything's on there for a really long time, then I'll just take that off of my list.
Yeah, there's certain areas that you just know you're going to be on the market for at least 4 months or something like that. You just want to stay away from those areas probably. Because there's still certain areas that move, around 30 days and stuff like that too.
No, I lied. We do have some that we're like, okay, so once we flip enough properties where we've had, let's say we did 3 in a year and we made $30,000 on each one. So I'm like, okay, we got $90,000 that we've made, and we weren't living off the money that we would make off of our rentals or our flips. We were living off of our work income. So what I made from my full-time job and what Anthony made at his contracting company.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so we have $90,000. So if we get a rental that's, $130,000, it's really only like $40,000 that we put of our either like save money or other investment money. So a lot of the rentals that we did plan were rentals because once we did all of our flips, that was the money that we used to buy a rental.
Yeah, so that was a plan to continue to build your profile or your portfolio, and then eventually have all these properties that you can do whatever you want with. Eventually, they could be used for retirement, or you could eventually 1031 exchange all of them, for like a bigger project or something like that.
So that's kind of
that's
our
why
plan.
I was asking about the future. I was really interested in like what you wanted to do later on or what y'all looking at next. But building makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially
so building or more rentals to have like that passive income. Anthony doesn't want to retire anytime soon. He loves what he does. I recently
He's good
stopped
at what
working.
he does.
Yeah, he loves it. So I stopped working recently. So now
But
I
you're
just
still
do
working.
PRN. Yeah. So I work maybe like 10 hours a week at the hospital, 10 to 20 hours a week. So that's been nice because of the passive income, and it doesn't take 40, 50 hours a week to find a wholesale or to do a flip. It's a couple hours every day, but not 8 hours like a full-time job.
Yeah.
So
And you're getting faster at it.
Yeah, it's allowed me to take that time away from having 2 full-time jobs.
That's good.
And so that's my 10-year plan is for Anthony to retire. Whether he'll ever retire, probably not.
Start traveling or something.
Yeah. To spend a little bit more time. Our kids are little, so just be more with them and present, because now they're starting to want to do stuff. My kid's like, I want to do karate and soccer and swim class. I'm like, bro, that all costs money.
That's a lot.
And that's a lot of time. But
good thing Daddy and Mommy are making some money.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, at least I can take them. But that's another reason, like, I kind of pulled a little bit away from the normal 9-to-5 job.
Makes
so
sense.
It's a lot more flexibility. You can do a lot of the work at home. It's a lot of reading, researching, doing numbers. So I do a lot when the kids are asleep. It's a lot of online shopping for clearance stuff. So just on my phone, looking
Your
for
Amazon
materials.
Cart's always full.
Yeah, with all kind of stuff, waiting for price drops.
Setting alerts.
Yes. So it's
reminders.
Easier to work with their schedules now.
Every little dollar counts, man. You've always done a good job at that.
People don't realize, like, you save $100 here and $200 here, and by the time you know it, you're like, yeah, I saved like $4,000. Like, that's nice.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? Like,
and that goes in your
all adds
pocket.
up. Yeah. Or doing even things yourself, like doing the landscape. People neglect the front yard a lot of times, and that's their first impression when they're driving up if it looks crazy.
Any tips on that? Yeah.
I say the least amount to make it look clean. So as long as it looks clean, if you have a yard that's cut and edged and maybe like a border with a few like cheap flowers, like you can buy like the 6-pack for like $3 or $4 at Home Depot and do it yourself. Some of the bigger things,
Maybe some mulch or something.
yeah. So the mulch right now is 4 for $10 at Home Depot. I bought some
Oh,
yesterday for my
damn.
flip house. But yeah, so like putting the mulch down with a couple flowers, and then I had my yard guy go
And you
and
could
cut
do the
the
cheap
yard.
little border.
Yeah, you do like a little plastic border, and it just makes it go a long way in the backyard. Set it up maybe like with the table or where somebody can imagine they're going to be
Do you
sitting and
stage
having
any
a
of your
barbecue.
properties?
Never staged a
No,
house.
never staged. Okay.
I know you tell me I should always stage a house, but I haven't. Maybe I will. 44 days on the market.
It's a sign.
Yeah. So no, I've never staged a property before, and I've never had anybody take my pictures for me. But we do.
Are you using the iPhone or what? What are you using to take pictures?
I have an Android.
Are you using the Android?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just take pictures on my cell phone. But I do always usually have like extra light, so the pictures don't come out dark.
That goes a long way.
Yeah, even if it's like during the day. So even if the house has good light, like with the lights, fixtures in the house and the windows open, I feel like the pictures still can come out dark sometimes. So just having a little bit of extra light is really all I have.
Yeah. Did you get that from me or no?
No.
We always do that with our.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, with our.
It just look. I'm like there in person.
our
I'm like, oh
listings,
my
for
god, it's
sure.
so pretty. And then I take a picture and it's like dark.
It makes a hell of a difference. Well, we change all the bulbs to daylight bulbs, so it's brighter in the house in general.
Yeah, I always have daylight bulbs. They're cheaper on Amazon. You can buy like 40 of them for
Yeah.
a lot cheaper than you get them like at Home Depot.
It makes a hell of a difference for the pictures, but also when you walk in there, like people like to walk into like a well lit
Clean,
house.
bright house.
Yeah, they really do. Well, I think we covered just about everything.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a good conversation. I liked it.
It's like us talking on the phone.
Yeah. Talk for like 30 minutes, no problem. So I knew this was going to be easy. Well, I guess, I mean, thank you for coming on here and telling us your story and giving us all that knowledge. Like, I think it comes down to a lot of research, like you said, and reading, like you said. Like,